Hello guys, in today's video we will be looking at another Tyflow approach, which is using the new Tyflow terrain approach. So let's get right into it. Similar like the previous video, we will place a Tyflow icon into the scene. Click to exit, make sure that's selected, go to the modifier stack and open editor. Awesome, so this is right at the end of our components. These orange icons in here are our Tyflow terrain components. Awesome, so first one we are placing is the birth terrain. Very similar with our birth surface, we will use a birth terrain to start us off. And if we look into the scene, we can see that it places a terrain perfectly at the center of our scene. Now you can change the dimensions. Let me just make this smaller so we can see what's going on. Awesome. Yes, so you can change the dimensions here. Right now it's at a 250 by 250 scale. We can always increase that or decrease that. Let's stick with the 250. Awesome, and right now it is at a resolution of 1024 pixels. Cool. So let's start adding more details to this terrain. We can do that. One approach is by adding noise. So we will add a noise component, look for terrain noise, place that right under the birth terrain. Perfect. And we can see it creates a pretty cool effect. Awesome. So the way this works is it's referencing in this noise map. And it has different presets or different features we can use. Right now, the default is simplex, but if you change it, you can see with less black in the noise map, we get a very different outcome, which is much more minimal. For today's tutorial, we will be sticking with the default simplex. Awesome. The great thing about this is that we can keep on adjusting parameters, like increasing the strength if we want those ridges to be even higher. We can change this dramatically. You can basically see all those dark points on the map are being applied by a strength of 200 meters. Ooh. Let's bring that down to 100. Awesome, and if you scroll down, you are actually able to layer another more noise map on top of that. So if we increase the strength here, right now it's set to 0, so there's not any layering going on. We can see it multiplies by another noise map. Go to that 200, and we can see quite a strong manipulation. Cool. Let's bring that back down to 50. Awesome. So that is one way we can mimic the terrain. We can also experiment and look at different variations. So if you're looking at the noise map here, you can see as I'm changing the phases, it's referencing in a different map. Awesome. So change that to whatever your desired is. I think this is looking pretty cool. Let's go back up and change this to 50. I want to create something quite even because I want to show you another way we can manipulate the terrain is by actually adding a slope. So adding terrain slope underneath that. And this will create a gradient map, which we can use. So looking at this gradient map, we can adjust the height. And right now it's set to radial, meaning this point is at the center of the terrain. So we can increase that height, decrease that height, and we can also add more nodes. Placing that in, we can see it changes it. It's important to note we are in radial at the moment. always expand that to create a donut kind of look. And then we can always delete points. Cool. So let's switch this now to a linear approach. Now this one's great if you want to create like a waterfall or water sliding down a hillside. You can always increase the strength of it. But for our exercise today, we want to create a valley. So just like that, we can create 2 higher grounds with our valley underneath. Awesome. Now let's start adding more detail to our terrain. We can do that by adding an erosion to our stack. Right underneath. Cool, let that calculate. Awesome. So what is going on here? If we switch toggle on and off, we can see just the amount of detailing that's getting put in. Awesome. So with this erosion, we actually have some presets that Terrain Tyflow has. If you look down to here, go through the presets. Now, one I like is Chiseled Hillside. Let's see how that one's looking. Awesome, I think it gives a very realistic look to the terrain. It just adds that extra layer of detail. And we can keep on layering these onto the stack. Another great one is Terrain FX. Now let's see what's going on here now. So as you can see, we've built up quite a lot of detail to our previously flat terrain. Very similar, we can toggle through different presets in different modes. Right now it's set to rugged. One that I find quite interesting is plateau. That creates more of a stepped, stacked kind of surface to display. Awesome, let's zoom out. Very cool. Nice. We can continue to experiment with this. We can add a warp component located right here. And this will basically just warp that noise map that we were looking at before. We can create kind of like a canyon. This is a bit too extreme for you. We can always increase and decrease strength like many of these blocks. Let's do something very minimal, 0.1 meters. Cool, so let's see what it's done. It's just created that slight alteration. For me personally, I think it adds a little more shape. Cool. Awesome. One last thing I want to create or change about the terrain is the actual display. Right now it's coming in as this one color. If we go to terrain color, we can start to look at some interesting presets. Let's just locate that terrain color. Awesome. Place that right there. By default, it's coming in with just this blank color. But one that's really interesting is, well, there's a few actually, and I love going through them. Let's start with Autumn Gully. So let's just let that one load. Very cool. So what it does is it looks at the different steepnesses or the different heights of these, and it assigns a different material to mimic real world terrains. So very steep surfaces, you get this very stone-like material, and then more flatter surfaces, you get this grass-like material. Now, on the theme of our kind of canyon, I think cold stone looks like the moon to me, so I find that very interesting as well. I think it's very cool having all these presets to experiment with. And you can see it's quite quick at loading them in, and you can create very interesting terrains. Awesome. To stick with our theme of water, let's look at highland streams. Very cool, let's just let that one load in. So similar with the other terrain, we can see that it is using different steepnesses or levels on the map, and it is assigning them with this list of materials. Very cool. Further in. Awesome. Now I want to add a terrain liquid. Place that right at the bottom. And then make sure you tick on the initial liquid depth. Awesome, and we can see how water would interact with those ridges and the site terrain. And this is a simulation, so you can actually play around in time and see where the water will end up. Awesome, that has been our video on Tyflow terrain. I hope you enjoyed.